this is why the concept of tourism and how it has evolved, it has led to these things, and the concept of carrying capacity about tourism has also evolved simultaneously. First, we have to understand who are going and why are they going there. The region, there are physical constraints in the region, there are socio-cultural constraints in the region, and there are also economic constraints. There are n number of events which have happened, right? And all of them show that there has been some kind of breach of the carrying capacity of the region because of the casualties. It's not the event.
Hello aspirants, hope you are doing well. I welcome you to another episode of conversation videos related to contemporary geography and environment related issues. Today we are going to discuss the breach of carrying capacity and sustainable tourism. To guide us through this crucial conversation, we have with us Mr. Harsh sir. He is renowned faculty in Vision IS. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, dear.
Sir, we have seen many cars are stuck on the roads. Many people are going for tourist activities. So what is this sustainable tourism and how do you see tourism as such?
So on this, I would probably self-experience comes to my mind, which I would like to share, which was 2018. And we were moving in Himachal, and we were at Rohtang Pass, and we were still not very decided which side we were supposed to go, but we were just like, ready to go. And once we crossed Rohtang Pass, so there were all the cars from that region, they were moving towards Ladakh. And we thought, if everyone is going to Ladakh, what must Ladakh be like? So we thought, why not go elsewhere? And we knew that there was another way from there to Spiti. So we asked someone that how is the road to Spiti, local looking guy. So he said, no, the road is not good, travel will not be easy, and it's better if you can go towards Ladakh. But then we decided otherwise, and we went to Spiti. The road wasn't there. At many places we had to decide whether to move on or not. But finally we did manage to reach Spiti. And in Spiti we talked to people. So even when they see people coming from outside, they are excited because they see very few people coming from outside. And then we said, why has this region not developed? And all that conversation, same as you said, road and transport and all that. But then there was a very interesting take which came from a very mature looking guy. He said that it's good that this region doesn't have much of roads, otherwise this region would have become like Ladakh. That made me thinking that, is it the region or is it the people going from outside, and is it the infrastructure? So I believe, though on one side we do say that it is the development and infrastructure and people are able to go and reach, but those things are also creating a lot of challenges. One, for the people who are going, they are stuck on the roads at times and so on and so forth, and two, also for the people of the region. And this is where there is a need for balancing the two, I believe. So that was a lesson that I learned from that experience, which I thought I must share.
Sir, tourist is an age-old activity. We see that the people are coming from other places to India, like in the ancient medieval times, and every time in the past we see that the people are coming to India, and we are also going to pilgrimages, and we are going to sites. But nowadays we are talking about economic benefits. We are talking about how to balance fragile ecosystem. So why we are talking about these things right now? We are not talking about these things way like in the past. We were not talking about these.
So you're very right. So for example, what comes to my mind here is that in the till 1970s, if we see, tourism was considered to be a smokeless industry, right? And which meant that it was not polluting, it was not leaving any ecological footprints. People used to travel, and things were okay, even for the communities where people were going, as well as for the people who were going, because the numbers were less. Infrastructure was not so good that everyone could afford to go or wanted to go. So there was a self-contained kind of a approach to this, and there wasn't a large number doing this. But with economic growth, what we find is that those numbers have swelled. So 1990s, 2000, 2010, and in the present thing, if you see, the numbers have really, suddenly jumped up.
There's exponential growth.
Yeah, international travel or domestic travel, and because of this, on one side we have the economic opportunity and other things, but on the other side we have also come up with other challenges. right? And this is where we now realize that tourism is almost just like any other material thing. It's a double-edged sword, right? So it does bring you the benefits on one side, but if not handled properly, it can lead to challenges also. Now, here I would like to quote from the National Mission on Sustainable Tourism 2022, where they say that the positives of tourism include tourism is one sector which is very fast growing. It creates a lot of employment opportunities. It has a what you call as multiplier effect, and it is labor intensive and those things, right? It creates good opportunities for people who otherwise don't have much opportunities. But on the other side, the same document also states that it also creates a lot of challenges, such as it creates challenges in terms of resource conflict between the local community as well vis-a-vis the tourists who are going. So for example, if we talk of food, if we talk of accommodation, if we talk of uh, the sanitation and other things. So local communities need water, you also need water, and then you find those, everyone has heard of those stories. So this is one set of challenge. Similarly, it also creates challenge of pollution, polluting environment and other things, right? And then even the tourism part, because so many vehicles are going, so we are doing so much of exhaust and so much new constructions have to be done. So this somewhat brings us to the concept of carrying capacity of a region, right? So I believe this is why the concept of tourism and how it has evolved, it has led to these things, and the concept of carrying capacity about tourism has also evolved simultaneously.
You have talked about carrying capacity. What does carrying capacity mean in context of tourism?
So, see, when we say carrying capacity, just the word, it simply means that the population or the community that a region can, in a sustainable manner, support, right? When we say carrying capacity with respect to tourism, I would give you an example. So, there are two ways we can understand carrying capacity with respect to tourism. One is the quantitative, the other one is the qualitative. When we say quantitative, it would be something like the maximum number of people who can be transported on a boat from a place to another place. Now, this is where you almost fill the boat, right? And you just transport them. But if you ask them, what was the experience of that? They might say, we just were transported and we didn't experience much. But when it comes to experience, tourism is more about experience. So this is where the other explanation of carrying capacity comes, which is more of a qualitative carrying capacity, which would be like how many people can cruise, tourism cruise can carry, so that the people can experience, enjoy the whole journey. So it's one side it is quantitative, the other side it is qualitative.
So tourism is a sort of an experience that one goes for.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what even the UNWTO, which is the World Tourism Organization, United Nations World Tourism Organization, even they define carrying capacity of tourism like this, that the maximum capacity that a region can support in terms of the physical and the environmental and the ecological capacity of the region, but at the same time the definition further says without compromising on the experience of the tourist. So it doesn't end only at the maximum capacity, it says without compromising on the experience of the tourist.
So aesthetics do count in
Yes,
tourism.
that's what. So the tourism carrying capacity is more about the experience rather than the number.
You have rightly explained the concept of carrying capacity. Is this concept relevant in context of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, where many tourists are going these days?
See, the answer to this will flow from the definition of tourism carrying capacity, which says that it is the physical, the economic, and the socio-cultural constraints on one side, plus the unacceptable compromise on the experience of the tourist. So first we have to understand who are going and why are they going there, right? Because from there only the answer will flow. So when we say who are going, it is the people from the non-Himalayan regions, such as the people from the plains and the peninsula who are mostly going to these regions. And why only these? Because we have only 13 Himalayan states in India, and when you see them also, Ladakh, Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand, the western Himalayan region, that's where most of the tourists go, because in the northeastern regions, the tourism has still not grown to that level because of the connectivity issues. So when we talk of this region, people from this region are going. Now the next question is, why are they going? And we also have international tourism, because I just missed them, but even they are there. Now why are they going there? They are going there because of the experience of the region, right? When you go to these hilly areas, the experience is completely different from what you can experience almost anywhere else, because you come across serene environment, you come across snow, you come across substantial temperature variation, right? You come across biodiversity, you come across the vegetation that you see around. Apart from that, you also see the cultural variation in the region, the food of the region, and so on and so forth. The list is ongoing. Now, the second part is they are also going because of various opportunities or situations which are created, such as now you have concepts like staycation, workation, then you have summer vacation, you have winter vacation, and then even the newer challenges like pollution. So many times when the pollution is extremely high, people like to go to these places. So there are n number of reasons why people are moving to these regions. So that is one part. But then comes the second thing, that this is why they are going. But what about the place?
So people are going everywhere these days because connectivity, you see, there is a good airway connectivity, there is road connectivity, and I've seen that the tourism is booming in Dubai also. So why we're talking about the carrying capacity of Himalayan region, specifically Uttarakhand and Himalayas?
Very well asked. So this is where the capacity of the region comes into play. When you see these regions, even otherwise, like these are mega diversity region, they are biodiversity hotspot regions. These are very fragile ecosystems. We know that, right? So when you talk of the region, there are physical constraints in the region, there are socio-cultural constraints in the region, and there are also economic constraints in terms of the connectivity is not proper. Physical, when we say this is, when you say there are n number of hazardous situations which can happen here, including the natural ones like earthquake prone, landslide prone, and so on and so forth. You have flash flood, you have cloudburst, so many things happening, right? So from that perspective, and even the slopes of the region, so there are n number of things because of which the region has a constraint to the number that it can handle, right? And that is why the term carrying capacity or tourism carrying capacity becomes relevant for this region.
Sir, we are talking about carrying capacity and one should not breach carrying capacity. So is this a subjective term or there is objective criteria for taking into account of carrying capacity?
So, see, when we talk of tourism carrying capacity, there is a method by which you can, or there are methods by which you can assess it. This term goes as back as what I have found was 1976. There is a document by ICIMOD, which is about the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, the mountain region and its ecosystems. That's a organization. So they way back in 1976 itself have defined or explained how carrying capacity should be measured, which is in terms of the environmental carrying capacities, the socio-economic carrying capacity, and the infrastructural carrying capacity of the region. Now, when we see presently, we have some other aspects also with respect to which we see, which includes physical carrying capacity, environmental carrying capacity, socio-economic carrying capacity, and yeah. So these are things. So physical, social, infrastructural, and environmental carrying capacity, and so on. So this is how you can assess, right, in terms of modern times. Now, apart from that, we also find like you have geophysical not geophysical, biophysical carrying capacity, and other ways. So this is how you can assess in terms of these things the carrying capacity. Apart from this, there was a recent development also which we find, where even our additional solicitor general in one of the cases with respect to carrying capacity at the Supreme Court has mentioned that the government has already created some standards where from the states and the tourism region, they have asked for data with respect to the carrying capacity. The word carrying capacity is not used, but they have mentioned with respect to the population of the region, the parking space in the region, the restaurants, how many hotel rooms are available, and so on and so forth. So this is how you can assess. Why we are collecting all that data is that so as we can assess what we mean by this term carrying capacity.
So there are parameters on which we are going to paint that this is what the region
Exactly.
can carry.
Exactly. And that list of parameters is not always confined, so you can always
Changes.
Yes.
Considering the width of parameters to assess the carrying capacity of a particular place, I think it's very difficult for a particular person to assess it. So in that context, what consequences that particular place will have when they breach the carrying capacity.
Yeah, well said. Actually, if we see the number of incidences that have happened in the past, especially in these regions, starting from almost 2008, where we have a Nana Devi stampede, where I think 200 plus people were killed. After that, we had lot many other instances, like we had the Kedarnath 2013 instance, then we had forest fires in 2016 and 20 in the Himachal region. Then we had avalanche 2022. Then we had, so there are n number of events which have happened, right? And all of them show that there has been some kind of breach of the carrying capacity of the region because of the casualties. It's not the event. Events are natural, they are bound to happen, but the casualties are because of the carrying capacity of the region, because there are people who were not supposed to be there, right? So I think that is one. Apart from that, if you see, so that's on the terms of events. Now if you see over a period, for example, when you see places like Shimla, there was a study which said that from 2007 to 2017 there have been more than 9,000 cases of jaundice, and the reason was there was a shortage of water and there was problem of sanitation. Why? Because there was a conflict between the needs of the local people versus the needs of the tourists. Now the tourists do go away, but who are the ones who suffer at the end? It's the people in the local region. So this is where we are already saying that the carrying capacity is being breached. And there are n number of instances where even the court has gone to the extent of saying that don't, go as per the carrying capacity, but the state governments in many cases have gone beyond the court statements. So there were the state pollution control boards which have come up with reports where they have mentioned, for example, in Kullu Manali, we find there was state control board reports which said that carrying capacity is being breached, but no measures were taken, and so on. Similarly, in other regions also, in Uttarakhand, you find around Nainital a similar kind of a situation happening where constructions have gone much beyond, right, the carrying capacity of the region as per reports. And there are institutes like the GB Pant Institute of Himalayan Studies which have come up with reports, but we find that those reports just get dusted. We are not taking much effort, and that's why at many places we are going beyond the carrying capacity of the region.
Sir, it's heartening that state government are not following the directives and they're going for the constructions. Maybe they might be thinking about the economic aspect of the tourism, that people will come, they'll have more income and more taxes will be generated and all those things. But the responsibility of the government is to go beyond economics. They need to go to the environment aspect, because if the environment is compromised, then I don't think they will be able to earn the living in the long term. So what measures the government is taking with respect to sustainable tourism promotion?
See, if we look at that, there are various measures over the decades that the government has taken. For example, we had the ESZ declared by the government 2002. After that, we had the ESAs which were declared in the Himalayan region, and then we have the zonal master plans. Then we have the tourism master plans which were there. Apart from that, even for the Himalayan region, there are various programs and projects which the government is doing, such as the National Mission on Sustainable Himalayan Ecosystem, which we have, the Secure Himalaya project that we have. After that, we have the National Mission on Sustainable Tourism itself, which was 2022. Then after that, we had the New Delhi Declaration at the G20, which was with respect to sustainable tourism. We also have the Goa roadmap for tourism 2023, and then also the tourism for life program that we have. I think it goes as travel for life as it goes. So travel for life program of the government, which is one of the most recent initiatives with respect to tourism that we find. Apart from that, we also find that even the Supreme Court has recently, last year, with respect to the carrying capacity of the Himalayan region, they have already the tourism places in the Himalayan region, they have said that there is a need for making a carrying capacity assessment of the region for the 13 states in the region. So, and they have also said that they will be making a panel around it. So there are measures which are being taken in this direction.
Indeed, government is doing many things related to conserving the environment aspect of these areas. But I have also visited certain areas, and I had seen that these places are very old. If you go to Shimla, you go to Manali, you go to these places, they were established way in the ancient times almost. Shimla was the recent one that get into in the colonial times. So their planning was according to those times, but tourism is of the new age culture that we have. So Is government doing something related to the planning aspect of these areas?
Yeah. So well said. I would say that I will bring a interesting fact here that when we talk of the cities, the cities in the mountains, in India we use the word hill stations. If you look at the word itself, hill station, this is not a word which is used outside the colonial country words. Why? Because hill stations were cities or stations which were developed by the colonial power in the hills so that during summers they could go there and you know run the government and other things, and hence these cities were planned at that time as per the needs of those times. Now interestingly, if you see at present, when we see at the data of the town and country planning organization, as per them, when we see the cities or towns in these region, the tier 1 towns, none of the tier 1 towns in the 13 Himalayan region or any of the metropolitan cities that we have in the Himalayan region where the population is more than 10 lakh. But so in those, when we see with respect to them, what we find is that none of them have a master plan for the cities. And even under the Amrit mission that we have, only 8 cities have a draft master plan for development. So this shows that we are doing a very unplanned kind of a development in these regions. Next, when we see the carrying capacity assessment, there have been various, initiatives taken by again the town and country planning organization and the state pollution control boards and even the GB Pant Institute for doing the carrying capacity assessment of cities like Shimla, McLeodganj, Manali, Dharamshala. But none of those reports, any action is still taken, right? So that shows that town planning we are not doing in a proper manner with respect to these places, and that's why, and for that you need to have a good understanding of carrying capacity. If you don't have a good understanding of carrying capacity, how do you go with it? Now for example, when you see Nainital, right, Nainital region, there was a blanket ban on construction around the Naini Lake region, I think way back in 2007 if I'm rightly recalling. But since 2007 till 2017, there has been more than 50% increase in construction despite of a blanket ban.
That's too
That,
much.
yeah, so that shows that there is hardly any planning, there is hardly any understanding of the carrying capacity, and these facts show us that the situation is grim, and that's why we are facing these challenges that we face now.
Sir, what measures can be done so as to promote sustainable tourism?
I think it's the attitude. And on this, I would ridicule myself by sharing a story from my personal life. This was way back in 1980s. I was a very young kid, right? And I was traveling with my parents. From Delhi, we were going towards Varanasi. And in the train compartment, the story I've never forgotten. That's why I keep sharing this. So in the train compartment, there were lot many, everyone was there and we were enjoying and we were eating peanuts and we were, because train journeys, that's how Indians enjoy. And we were just throwing around everything, right? And there was this family of Japanese people. And so it was the husband, wife, and they had 2 kids. Now, these people had a bag which they kept all through the journey with them, and every time they had something to throw, they would put it in that bag, including something which could leak. So even that they were putting in that bag only. And we, all the while we were traveling, we used to think, why are they putting it in the bag? Why can't they throw it on the ground? Because anyways, railways will get it cleaned. But they never did it, right? And they went away. To be honest, I understood the importance of that when I started preparing for UPSC. That story remained in my mind because I didn't have an answer to that question, right? But then I realized that what they were doing is a culture, right? It's a culture of cleanliness, it's a culture of sustainability, it's a culture of not polluting your environment, right? Which, as I said, I was ridiculing myself. So that culture we don't have. We miss that culture. For example, when you go on tourism to any place, what do you find? People are going on the road, the place is green, they open the window, they throw it out. Right? They're throwing plastic, they're throwing bottles, they're enjoying like anything. If you go by the lakeside or water body side, there also you find a lot of garbage. So this is a culture, right? So we have to be considerate about the environment. Similarly, we have to be considerate about in our construction plans, we have to be considerate about the physical limitations of the region. Where should we construct a house? Where should we construct a building? Where we should block the drainage patterns? right? Those things need to be taken care of. Similarly, it also applies to socio-economic factors, that we have to be respectful to the society to which we are going, to the local communities. We need to respect them. We have to have local food. We shouldn't be demanding, oh, we are going to a extreme location, and what do we demand there? We say we need pizza or pasta. That's not available, which means you're transporting all that all the way, and you're polluting even the air by taking it all the way. So it's not so consuming local food and all this. As I said, it's more about the culture, right? So it's the culture which, and I believe that story says a bit about, sustainable tourism and carrying capacity, that we don't care.
We need to be more responsible
Yes,
at
yes.
individual level, at society level, at
Yes, we
all the
have to be
levels.
sensitive. Exactly.
Yes.
From the individual up to the organizational level, we have to be sensitive, and we have to be taking the responsibility on ourselves.
And environment needs to be taken seriously. Yes,
Yes,
majority
yes.
of the people do not think in this way. They think that we are here for some amount of time, then we'll leave there,
Yes,
and their presence is still there
yes.
in one way or other.
You might switch house, you might switch cities, you might switch countries. You can't switch the planet.
So, how sustainable tourism will help us?
See, when we talk in the national context, Himalayan region is one of the regions which is so important to us with respect to lot many things, right? Our major water sources are there, and it has a major impact on the climate and other things. So if we are not keeping that region sustainable in our tourism, it can have repercussions which we can't even think, right? That is, to me, one very important thing. Second is, when if we go on doing constructions mindlessly, even that would have a repercussion in the long term in the region, and which is already started showing, as we see. Even the community in the regions might be completely disturbed, and it can create social tensions and other kind of challenges, right? But from the perspective of the ones who receive the service, you won't have an Himalayan region to go to. We might completely lose it, right? So if we want that even our generation should go to these places, we must do sustainable tourism, so that the region remains alive for generations to come. So I think that is why it is important. Even when you look at it from the perspective of the SDGs, our goal 8 to goal 12, they are, if we have to fulfill them, we need to do sustainable tourism. Even if we see our national mission on sustainable tourism, there also we, if we have to fulfill the goals of that, we need to do sustainable. So that's why it is important, and I think that's why we must put our sincere efforts towards this when we are traveling.
Sir, before we conclude, many students, many aspirants, and many people want to go to different places so as to explore the world, especially in the hilly areas. So, what will be your piece of advice to them? How can they be more sustainable?
If you ask me the word sustainability, so there is the Brundtland Commission's report, in which sustainable development is defined. But if you ask me, and if I have to explain to somebody what is sustainable, if a child asks me, I would explain it this way: that when you look at the universe doesn't have a waste box, and it is sustainable. If you look at any species, they don't have a waste box, and most of them have lived their whole life based on the natural cycle. The only ones who have a waste box are human beings, and our waste box have multiplied since we have become the so-called developed, right? Industrial revolution and after that. So our waste box goes on becoming bigger and bigger, and that is also reflecting in our tourism locations and all. And if we go on increasing our waste, we will become unsustainable. So if there's a relation, it is the waste and the sustainability. If you are creating more waste, it's a reciprocal relation. More waste, less sustainable. So create less waste at the place where you go, and you are sustainable.
I would like to extend my gratitude to Harsh sir for his valuable insights and wisdom. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, dear.
And I want to thank viewers for watching this session. Stay tuned for more conversation videos like this. Till then, stay hydrated, stay updated, and stay focused. All the very best.